There's a deathless beauty about a landscape we love, which the seasons revive year after year. Generations of our kind have left their mark on this place, but nature continues to exert its power, and we can share all that it has to offer.
Some words are magic. The name Dartmoor has the somber feel of granite about it. This last great wilderness of England is also the heart of Devon, with tors rising to 2,000 feet and vast expanses of bog and heather where rivers like the Dart, Tor, Tean and Tavy are born. There are 365 square miles of upland, and looking up from my South Devon birthplace, I can see this huge rock, Hay Tor, standing in the sky. It remains a fabulous statement of the unattainable. The moors can be a subtle marriage of light and silence, honeycombed with lark song. It's also hill farming and the prehistoric past, the scars of tin mining, wildlife, tourism, and the weather. Here the weather is everything, and its moods are swift and unpredictable. A gentle stillness may be followed by punishing storms. Weather has helped shape the tors, which give the landscape its distinctive character.
Almost every hill has its broken granite outcrop, battered by time and the weather. They have acquired names which make them part of moorland mythology. Barman's Nose, Black Tor, Fox Tor, Vixen Tor, Hound Tor, Devil's Tor, Saddle Tor. There's a noticeable contrast between the north and south moors with their large blanket bogs. The south is rounded, exposed, braided with prehistoric remains and all the mystery that goes with symbols of the lost past and more recent industrial history. The high, rugged north is a washed-out bleakness of peat hags and tired grass among lonely hills where spring comes late and life is a struggle. The peat sog of these two great uplands is the source of many Devon rivers. Below the hills, where only isolated thorns survive, there are three ancient oak woodlands. Wistman's is the largest. Its stunted trees grow among the boulder clitter in the West Dart Valley under Bear Down. The branches and boles are covered in epiphytic ferns, mosses and lichens. The woods of the lower valleys, with their great stands of coppice oak and beeches, come into leaf far sooner. sheltering the frail beauty of wood anemones and a wealth of other spring flowers. Downriver, the trickle from the peat bogs has broadened to a powerful flow, fed by scores of small streams bursting off the upland. The season has also noticeably strengthened, and its little miracles of light live in leaf and water. The delicacy of these Dartmoor flowers could not survive the uncompromising assault of the hill weather, which writes its own landscapes and landscape moods.
One of the things Dartmoor is really famous for is the bog. There are four main types. There's the blanket bogs on the higher ground, there's the raised bog, there's the featherbed bog, little green thing, and there's this, the valley bog. I'm standing on a raft of vegetation, mostly of peat mosses like sphagnum, that have been built up over the years. This is a classic example of the valley bog. It was formed over hundreds of years when the stream coming down from the top of the valley changed direction and left channels. And these channels silted over until eventually the whole of the valley was one vast bog. It's one large crust, and underneath it is a peaty gruel. This couldn't have been formed without some sort of platform of granite below. But how far down is that granite platform? In stories by people like Conan Doyle about Sherlock Holmes, the bog is that sinister, unknown quantity. Well, I'm about to probe that unknown quantity now. The last thing in the world I want is to join this pole as it goes down into those black depths. Well, not very spectacular here, but there are places, I'm sure, where this will vanish entirely.
Man's path can take you into the season and the bluebell radiance, or back into the hazy past. Spinster's Rock is the 4,000-year-old uncovered remains of a Neolithic tomb. For centuries before the birth of Christ, man was building in stone all over the moors.
The stone rows, circles, and standing stones fascinate me. Were they symbols of a vision of eternity that was not blinkered by logic? Granite is permanent looking. It isn't subject to mortality. Living through instinct and their senses, did our ancestors believe that the standing stones received power and emanated power? We have properties in our bodies which can be found in stones and stars. And if water is magnetic to dowsers, is there something in us that responds to the web of natural forces embracing the whole of creation? Perhaps the stones point at the sky because humanity looks up out of bewilderment into the hope of something remarkable that may begin with the last breath. Maybe the way into that mystery was through instinct. Maybe reason and logic have led us into a cul-de-sac. We continue to worship the mystery in our own way. If prehistoric man had his symbolic standing stones, then we today have ours. The energy beamed from this structure exerts enormous influence on humanity.
According to myth, a group of people dancing on the Sabbath were turned to stone and left for eternity as the circle at the beginning of the long row. The dancers are there today, unmoving, while what is believed to be the longest single stone row in the world runs on for over 2 miles. The stone circles echo the shapes of the sun and full moon, the symbols of mystery, life, and eternity. The double stone circle of grey weathers is the largest and finest of its kind on the moor. The circle at Grimspound served a more practical purpose. Here a massive dry stone wall with a paved entrance enclosed 24 small round huts and pens of the Bronze Age. Occasionally on the moor, there are rough granite crosses, which were either guideposts or boundary markers. Many of the guideposts stand on the so-called Abbott's Way, the route which is supposed to have connected Buckfast with Buckland and Tavistock Abbeys. Certainly crosses mark several paths, and travellers must have been glad to see those beautiful pieces of stone, each of which is stamped with the individuality of its creator. On the ancient routes, the simplest way of crossing water and keeping dry was over a slab of granite. So the clapper bridge was born. As the water widened, the bridges became longer and central pillars were introduced. Granite piers of enormous weight, standing high above the stream, were built to cope with rivers in flood. The biggest and best example is at Post Bridge. Of all the old industries on the moor, tin mining has really left its mark. There are numerous reminders in granite scattered along the waterways. Mortar stones were pounded by heavy stamps to crush the ore, although granite millstones sometimes did the job. Mold stones were used to hold molten metal as it cooled into ingots. The most impressive monument to mining on Dartmoor is the disused engine house of Wheel Betsy at Blackdown above Mary Tavy. Lead, copper, arsenic and silver were brought to the surface.